Good evening, guys. Good afternoon, and welcome back to another episode of Hightop Game Day. It's our second annual one here. We're having a great time. We have some incredible guests on today. Cannot wait to show you these guys. Let me go ahead and let's get these guys into the stage right now to introduce you to all of them. We've got Ty Hayes returning to defend his belt in High Top Table Talk from Alabama. We're going to talk all about Bama and Texas and the future of Alabama and Nick Saban. Underneath me, we got JJ Kitchen here, the Pittsburgh, the ACC representation this week. JJ, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Thankful to be on the show, man. I've been watching your show for a while. Got some great guests on, great fans that watch the show. Just really excited to be here.
Good stuff. And then Jake Crain from Crain & Company, representing the Auburn Tigers today. We've got beef we got to go over. Jake, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing good. Yeah, we're all fans of somebody. We cover everything, but deep down, I'm hoping Auburn can figure it out, and I volunteer as tribute.
I love it. Well, we'll get back to those guys here in just a minute, but before we do any of that, make sure you guys like, subscribe, turn the bell on. Again, we're going to be doing this every Saturday about 9:30 to 10:30. It's the new and improved College Game Day is the idea of it. We're streaming on YouTube and Facebook, so happy to have all of you guys here. But without further ado, let's dive into Alabama talk with Mr. Ty Hayes. Ty, how are we doing, big guy?
It's a new week. We're good. Looking forward to the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, man, it was a hell of a game. It was during the Florida game last week, which the Florida game wasn't that big of a deal. But as a Florida fan, I had to see if we made some improvements. We had Jason on last week. He's obviously a big Oklahoma guy. Out of the three of us, I was the only one that took the Longhorns. Obviously, I was on the right side of victory this week. Again, the big question mark last week was who needed it more? Was it Sarkisian? Was it Nick Saban? I think we all agreed it was definitely Sarkisian. Texas needed it more. The following question, though, was, is this the end of the dynasty in a way? Is it the end of Saban? You were pretty adamant that it wasn't the case. After following that game, are you still riding that horse, or have you changed it a little bit?
Yeah, no, look, I think, one, it depends how you phrase the question. If you mean, is this the end of Alabama in terms of, is this the end of Alabama being the team that you write in at the beginning of the season to win the national championship every year, go ahead and send that to your local betting station. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I also think that goes into what we talked about last week, where I don't know that it's Bama is just falling off. College football is getting better. Right? You look at what Steve Sarkisian is doing at Texas. That's a really, really good Texas team. Brian Kelly with LSU. Hugh Freeze coming to Auburn. We know what Hugh Freeze does. He's going to have to redo some stuff there, but we know what he does as a coach. Brilliant offensive mind. He's had a lot of success in the SEC, and that's not even to begin mentioning Kirby. Brent Venables with Oklahoma. That's going to be a lot of fun to see. It's not the same Alabama that you just write in and say they're going to win a national championship, but I still maintain that it is an Alabama team that 95% of college football fans would trade their season to have that season in a heartbeat, like we talked about last week.
Sure.
Paul Feinbaum is questioning Nick Saban's legacy coming off of a 2-loss season. Like, that's just asinine, right? Like,
sure.
It's just wild. But no, great game by Texas. They won in the defensive front. They won up front on offense. Not much you can say about that game. Hats off to the Longhorns. Hats off to Steve Sarkisian. Excited to see how Alabama responds this week.
And now you're heading down to Tampa to play USF, and Milroe gets benched for Tyler Buchner. Look, I think you're a little shocked. You were frustrated precast, but when they went and got Tyler Buchner from Notre Dame, you felt that was probably going to be the ultimate goal or the end goal anyways, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I actually had this debate with people. A lot of people were saying, hey, they just got him in to increase competition. And I was like, yeah, that's the point, right? If they're fine with the level of competition they had, then they wouldn't have brought anybody in. And by bringing somebody in, he's not just there to be a guy that moves the needle for a competition. He's there to push for a job. And so it was always a possibility. I think it's a little... Look, I can't disagree. I have my thoughts on it. I understand it, but at the same time, I look at that game plan last week, and you want to know my biggest takeaway, man? Sark took Tommy Rees to school. If we look at how he used Quinn Ewers throwing passes behind the line of scrimmage to spread that Bama defense out east and west so he could attack north and south. It was brilliant play calling by Steve Sarkisian. I didn't think we utilized Jalen Milroe to the max, like to maximize his ability, but once I'm not a coach, right? So that's up to the coaches. We'll see what Tyler Buchner does. So we'll see, man. It's going to be a lot of fun at the very least.
Now, the last time Buckner took a hard L was against a team in green. You're playing a team in green this week. Do you feel any correlation, or you think you guys are going to be able to bounce back pretty heavily against USF?
Well, I was sleeping pretty clean before you had to bring that one up, so I got a little bit of a bone to pick with you now about that. No, look, I think we'll be fine against USF. USF is a team that They had two guys last year that were very good, and Weaver and Jimmy Horn Jr. They're not there anymore. And I mean, both of those guys, we see what they're doing for Coach Prime and Boulder. Yeah. They move the needle. Those are dudes. They don't have that anymore. Their leading receiver, the guy that they're probably going to hang their hat on, he's coming off of a 300-yard season. I think he's talented, but you're asking a lot of somebody whenever those two guys aren't there. So Alabama should roll off of talent alone, but I need to see form football. I think JJ put it great earlier. Do the simple things right, and you should come out victorious. Easy.
Keep it simple. And we got the upcoming schedule on the right here. So you've got Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And I'm looking at this schedule, and in years past, you would look at this and think, look, Bama's rolling, right? There may be a game here that could be a little bit of a hiccup game, but typically that Mississippi State game would be a great bounce back game for Alabama, right? Maybe they're coming off an LSU loss. Maybe they're coming off an Auburn's at the end of the year, or Georgia, some kind of weird middle loss, right? Sometimes it is an Ole Miss, but that Mississippi State game usually was a bounce back. These two games now, they've got some weight to it because I think the identity of Alabama right now is unknown. And you were talking precast, things have seemed to level themselves out. Now, is it because of the portal? Is it because of the NIL? I think a lot of it, honestly, all of it's happened so quickly. It's hard to point it to one exact thing, but it's interesting to see these two games on the schedule, and you've got to be a little nervous as a Bama fan walking into both these games, especially Ole Miss.
Yeah, here's the thing with Ole Miss, though, is I need to see them get their quarterback situation together. I mean, that was one of the oddest things all offseason, how many quarterbacks they had coming into that room. But Lane's a brilliant guy. He's going to get it done. Now, we do know their running back. He's fantastic, Judkins. I just need to see what happens with that Ole Miss defense, right? Like, that's always been the downfall of Ole Miss. And if you're playing a team like Alabama, most of the time you have to be pretty balanced to come out of that game victorious. Not all the time, but usually you have to be pretty balanced. Now, to your point, Mississippi State, that's a team now that has a defensive-minded head coach. They want to establish themselves as a defensive brand, but they also have Will Rogers. He's thrown for a lot of yards in the SEC. If they unleash him, it's going to be a lot of fun. So these are going to be really fun games to watch. They're going to be great tests for the Crimson Tide, no doubt about it.
Love it. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on here again, especially after that rough weekend. I messaged you earlier as hey, are you MIA? We good to go?
Yeah. You had to make sure I was still good. Yeah. I appreciate it.
And you told me earlier you're in Texas. You just went outside and sat in the heat and just basically let yourself drench for a little bit because you're going through it right now as a Bama fan. It's tough. Look, long season. That's why we're trying to tell the Gators it's a long season. Got a lot left of you. Give me your closing thoughts, man, and then we'll wrap it up.
They just need to do the simple things right. And for the love of God, they have got to block something. I know when you asked me for my 3 keys, one of them was block something, anything, because the pass protection was tough to watch. And that's a good Texas defensive front. Give credit where it's due. But they have got to clean that up. And then the quarterback situation, really, Alabama has got to establish an identity. And I don't like that we're in week 3 doing a quarterback carousel because that doesn't inspire confidence for any of the players, right? So Bama has got to establish an identity now, or else it could be an ugly season.
Absolutely. Well, Ty, we'll be back. We'll have you back on to defend your title here in just a little bit. Sit tight, relax, and we're going to get back. We're going to go over to Auburn now, and that should be fun later on with the two of you. Thanks, Ty.
Love it.
Whoa, no, not yet. Easy codes, easy professor on the trigger there. So that was Ty Hayes with Alabama. We're going to moving on to Jake Crain here with Auburn in just a moment here. But look, Alabama needs a big bounce back week for USF. This is going to be, in a sense, their McNeese State game for Florida after that Utah game where they can fix some things, see what Tyler Buchner could do. Again, leading up to this, there was a 3-way battle with that quarterback position. Could Buchner lose his job this week and they're rolling into quarterback number 3 that following week? I don't believe so, but it will be something to watch. And again, it seems that things are wide open. We got Georgia, South Carolina today. I feel like Georgia's probably the last big domino to fall of your massive heads. Ohio State, obviously, they're always a top favorite to go down as well, or in a sense to look, immortal. But Ohio State hasn't looked fantastic either. Michigan right now and FSU, in my opinion, are probably the 1-2 strong punches. Georgia will solidify itself if it's still Georgia this weekend against South Carolina. Being 27-point favorites is pretty massive against a South Carolina Gamecocks team. I picked them to be early upset before the season started. I don't know if I feel confident about the upset. I feel confident about Gamecocks covering, but we will see how that plays out. But let's go ahead and let's move on to the Auburn Tigers with Mr. Jake Crain, ladies and gentlemen. Jake Crain, how are we doing, man?
Doing great, man. It's another college football Saturday. I know some people have talked about, this slate's not as marquee matchup filled as the ones that we had last week, and even going back to I guess week 0, there's more good matchups this week, but there's no such thing as a subpar week when you have football on. So I'm ready to go, man.
Yeah, the week 3 is getting a lot of hate for it. I mean, Florida, Tennessee, I think is big. The Colorado CSU game's okay, but look, Georgia, South Carolina, that's gonna be a great game. We've got the backyard brawl, which we're gonna talk about a little bit later on. There's some good games in there, but I mean, to be fair, week 4 next week, it's a hell of a football week.
Oh, it's loaded. It's definitely the hottest chick at the bar. But I just don't understand how people complain for the off season. You're like, man, we don't have football, and then like week 3 gets here, and they're like, man, this weekend sucks, man. It's like the Louis C.K. bit when he's like, man, my cell phone sucks. Like, do you understand the technological advances that it took for you to even have that flip phone? So I don't know, man. It just grinds my gears.
I agree. I was even talking this past week. I was like, look, guys, we're getting frustrated as Gator fans, but we've been wanting this all year. We're already in week 3. Like, this thing's flying by. It
always does.
We can't be pissed about it. If we're winning or losing, let's just appreciate the fact that we get to watch football on Saturdays.
I'm over there watching Miami and Bethune-Cookman play. That's the best part about sports gambling. I'm over there watching Miami and Bethune-Cookman play like it's the Super Bowl.
Sweating the cover, right?
Sweating it, just absolutely like a fat kid in the Texas heat.
This is incredible. Well, Jake, as any great relationship starts, mind you, anyways, I typically put my nose where it doesn't belong, and I start running my mouth a little bit. You came out with your prediction for Auburn to go 8-4. You happen to be on the back end of where a lot of people were picking Auburn, and I took it personal. Maybe it's because you guys are the other orange and blue of the SEC. Maybe it's because you got a quarterback coming from the Big Ten, and so do we. Maybe it's because you have a new coach, and so do we. Yet, when you guys get talked about, you're going 8-4. We're going 3-9. I'm like, whoa, what am I missing? I need to know what's happening because I'm frustrated.
Yeah. Well, I think it's maybe because Tebow never beat us. I think obviously schedule, right? When you look at schedule, that's the biggest difference. You look at the non-conference. I mean, you guys have to play Florida State and Utah. I mean, that's like getting jumped by a gang full of ninjas, right? When you walk out of the dojo. I mean, compared to going to Cal, and Auburn played obviously UMass in week 1, and then you have Samford, and then you have in the back end you got New Mexico State. So look, I mean, it's an Auburn team that I think transfer portal wise on the offensive line, that's the quickest way you bridge the gap. You want to go from the duplex to the suburbs. It starts up front. I think Hugh Freeze did a good job with that. Bringing in Peyton Thorne from Michigan State. Jury's still out on him a little bit. He's got to play better. He's got to read the RPOs a little bit better. It seems like he's struggled to not only work the right side when it's not an RPO, but make the right decision. That's the whole reason you run the RPOs, to put stress in 3 different surfaces against the defense. That's why Hugh Freeze calls it 3-man surface method. But I think schedule's a lot of it. You get Bama and Georgia at home. I predicted Bama to go 9-3 this year, and I picked them to win the national championship last year. Look, I mean, we're all fans of somebody. I'm from Auburn. My father played there, but Auburn hasn't sent me a check yet. So I don't get paid to tell people what they want to hear. I get paid to tell them, what I think they need to hear. So when it comes to it, mainly schedule, personnel, what he did through the transfer portal. Biggest question for Auburn is pass rush. I still think it's the biggest question for Auburn. The defense was able to play stout against Cal, but as we get going here with the A&Ms and the Georgias and the LSUs, I think the difference for Auburn between them and Florida really is depth with personnel, and then obviously the schedule is the main thing.
Yeah, look, when you hit me with the schedule, I went and looked because I mean, I wasn't really paying too much attention to it. I was like, well, he's got something there because again, you're out of conference. It's much easier than Florida playing Utah, FSU. Those are questionable wins versus your 4 games. I mean, you've got Cal, Stanford today. Look, it should be 4-0 off the slat. So now you got to do is win 4 games. There's a few in there that you could pick. And now with how
at Vandy, both the Mississippi schools at home. You get Alabama and Georgia at home. The weird things happen in Jordan-Hare, and then if you're able to find a way to win one of at Arkansas, at LSU, and at Texas A&M, well, there's 8 right there. But you got to sweep the non-conference. That's why that Cal win was so big last week.
Yeah, that was a nail biter. I was really hoping for the Cal to get it done. So I'm like, see, I was trying to tell you guys.
God.
But it didn't go in my favor. But look, and now I'm going to eat my words a little bit because the SEC looks more open than it did before. That A&M game, look, I wasn't sold on A&M. I think that's a toss-up. People were high on A&M. I was knocking the horn saying, why are they high on A&M? I didn't believe in them either. But that Georgia game, again, Georgia doesn't look as, like last year, it was Georgia than everybody else, right? But now that game has a little more flavor to it. The Bama game for sure has more flavor. I mean, that game doesn't matter how good Auburn can walk into that game winning one game. It's just like Florida State. Doesn't matter. So now all of a sudden, look, you're not off where your thought process was. Those games are winnable, and I am eating my words a little bit. Again, I get more frustrated, but I understand too the schedule. And next year, Florida's schedule is even worse. I mean, it's
awful. Like who has pictures of who? Like who held who at gunpoint for this schedule? Like if I'm Billy Napier, I'm over there like, man. Like for real? Like I'm like when the AD walked in his office when the schedule got released, I'm in there with the lights off, smoking a cigar, like sitting in the corner, like sit down. We need to talk. Like we need to talk about this whole scheduling situation. I mean, goodness gracious, dude. Like getting hit with a baseball bat.
It's brutal, and it's his first 3 years have been absolutely atrocious. And it's like, what? Everyone's like, we need to fire Billy. Have you not seen what this man has gone through? It is an absolute gauntlet for the last 2 years, and it's going to be even worse next year. There's not a cupcake on there.
No, there's not. No, well, that's the thing. Like everybody's like, oh, they're going to fire Billy Napier. Like if Billy Napier has one of the toughest jobs that I've seen in a long time in college football. And then you look to your right, and Florida State's figured it out. You look to your left, Miami looks as physical as they have been. That kind of Miami swag's a little bit back. UCF's going off to the Big Ten. I tell you what, Alec Golich, a good buddy of mine, just got hired at South Florida. It's going to take a little bit of time, but they already look worlds better than what they did the previous couple years, at least from an organizational and balance standpoint. I'm just telling you, man, it's tough, but Florida's one of those golden egg places. All it takes is a spark to start a wildfire.
Yeah, USF, I mean, they were obviously in the hunt for Coach Prime before he went off to Colorado. Imagine if he would have landed at USF, what they would have been able to do. They could have made a run like UCF has made over the past few years. For sure. But UCF has claimed that Big Four, how are they going to fit into that? And people are kind of like shaking their heads a little bit. Look, they're going to be in the Big 12. They're making a run. They've got a big game. Look, there's a big game for them this week, and they play Kansas State. I know it's not 2 ranked teams, but there's a lot there because KSU's ranked. They're favored to probably win the Big 12 or be at least competitive in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Everybody's sleeping on UCF, but this game's going to tell you right now, are they going to be the real deal in the Big 12 or are they going to fall flat?
For sure. I mean, you got a lot of teams that are. I think that had a little bit of effect too on Houston last week against Rice. Looking ahead, that's why I don't think it's crazy to put sprinkle a little money on Miami, Ohio plus 14.5 today at Cincinnati because Cincinnati opens Big 12 play next week. Kind of looking ahead to that. So yeah, I mean, again, you always want to come in to make a good first impression, right? Prison rules. Punch the biggest guy, the first guy you see. That's the biggest guy that you see. You want to come in and make a statement. Just like Texas yesterday, beating Alabama, making a statement saying, hey, when we come into the SEC, we're not going to be Oliver Twist holding up a bowl just hoping to beat Vanderbilt. We want to come in and kick the door down like the Kool-Aid man.
Absolutely. Well, Jake, give me your closing thoughts with Auburn and how the future looks, and then we're going to have you back on here shortly to represent yourself in the High Top Table Talk.
Well, look, now that the Harsin hostage crisis is over, they got a guy in there in Hugh Freeze that understands how to win at this level. He's won everywhere he's went. When he didn't win, it was self-inflicted wounds. And I've known Hugh personally for a long time. He's a guy that I wanted to get the job. Hell, I was hoping he'd get the Nebraska job before the Auburn job even came open. But you have a guy now that's not a house cat. He wants to go out and recruit. He doesn't want his milk brought to him. He doesn't want to just sit around and talk about lifting weights and accountability. He wants to win as bad as anybody. And you've had a great merger of somebody who saw his professional life flash before his eyes when he was at the mountaintop in Hugh Freeze, go to a place at Auburn that you can win. It's shown you can win a national championship. So you look at recruiting right now, Auburn is all aligned. And when Auburn is aligned from a donor standpoint, from a fan base standpoint, from a player standpoint, from a coaching staff standpoint, it can be really dangerous. And Brendan, I saw that you said that Auburn paid a laptop stealer. Look, I don't know if you know this, but everybody paid everybody before NIL, and Florida's the last school that needs to be talking anything about character. I can go down the list of guys that aren't exactly Eagle Scout leaders, like, I don't know, maybe Aaron Hernandez. So I'd be easy with that, Brendan. Don't throw stones.
What a closing thought. Jake, we'll be back here in just a minute, man. I appreciate you as always. And go Gators. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake Crain there with the Auburn Tigers. Look, I'm eating my words a little bit. I'm eating crow because I was not sold on them. But again, now how the schedule is playing out, that 8-4 doesn't seem as crazy. That Mississippi State game is going to be a great one. I think Ole Miss is a fantastic football team. But Lane Kiffin, those guys find a way to lose those big games. And again, Hugh Freeze, he's been in the big moment before. He's won these big games. Could he get it done? I will see. I mean, right now we've got questions later on about the SEC West. To me, the SEC West is wide open. It seemed like it was going to be a lock and a battle between Bama and LSU. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. We're going to dive into that a little bit later on. But before we do any of that, let's get Mr. JJ Kitchen in here to talk about the backyard brawl and where Pitt's future lies with the ACC. They've seemed to fall off a little bit. Got to talk to him about what happened last week in Cincinnati and old Emory Jones. JJ Kitchen. This is the Adam Schefter of college football, ladies and gentlemen. This man has got it dialed in. How you doing, big guy?
Doing good, man. It's always good to be here. Again, it's always good to talk Pitt, but more importantly, when it's the backyard brawl weekend, it's rivalry weekend. I guess for Pitt back to back, trying to bounce back after losing to Cincinnati. But it's going to be a physical football game this week.
Absolutely. Look, I picked you guys for Cincinnati last week. Maybe I'm a little blinded just because I watch you a little bit. I talked with you a little bit, and I was really hoping Pittsburgh would get it done. A little bit of a vendetta with Emory Jones, a couple Gators there as well. And I was hoping you guys would get it done. But Jenny lost by 6 points. We talked about a precast a little bit. Now you got the backyard brawl. Then you got UNC following that. I mean, you got a slew of a schedule here. And again, we're not too far off of Tiny Hand Pickett and Addison just a few years ago, and Pitt has seemed to slide a little bit. Well, the ACC seems to be wide open. I know FSU is really looking like the top dog right now, but you got to believe the ACC, you have an opportunity to play in that game or be competitive. Does Pitt turn it around this week and moving forward?
So I'm going to say yes, and here's why. When I look at Pitt, in the beginning of the season, every year, there seems to be that slow start, even in the Pat Narduzzi defense where it's rush defense focused. Okay. Our defenses in terms always stop the run. It was kind of weird last week. We gave up over 180 yards rushing in the first half, but in the second half, we saw the real Pitt defense where they only gave up 36 rushing yards and only 62 passing yards. Emory Jones only had 125 passing yards the entire football game. So that was good to see. And obviously, Pitt only lost by 6 points. My biggest thing is I want to see what our offense does this week. But if there's anything that's really proven to me over the past really 3 or 4 years is that, really game 1 to game 2, you make your biggest adjustments. And here's why I say this week is really game 2. I always tell people, you never find out about your football team against an FCS opponent unless it's a bad thing. So, when I look at West Virginia and I watch the tape and I watch the Penn State tape, I watch the Duquesne tape, they were with Duquesne really for a quarter and a half, and that was a little concerning for them. But for me, I kind of watched that and said, what? There wasn't a lot of energy going out there. There was multiple miscues. But when I look at Pitt, they took care of business against the FCS opponent, expected what I thought. The Cincinnati game was extremely physical. I love the game, but there was clear mishaps, especially in 2 with the gap defense. And really, Pat Narduzzi, when you look at his defense, it's gap discipline is what I call it. It's all about 11 guys working in unison, and that's what makes it so great. That's why they were in the top 2 for the last 4 to 5 years in terms of sacks. They've had 40-plus sacks for the last 5 years in a row. Those are the type of things that you look at for our defense. Then you look at the offense. Frank Cignetti back for his second year. You brought Phil Dracovic in from Boston College. Certainly didn't look good last week. It was 10 of 32, 179 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think the 3 touchdowns and 179 yards overlook really how bad it was. There were times where he made those NFL throws, what you saw in 2020 and 2021, but then you saw throws, man, that just didn't. That's not Phil Dracovic, and that's not the guy that we want to see on a regular basis. So, really, when I look at this team, I expect them to make that jump this week, just like they did, especially last year. Okay, and especially the year before that. I remember when we faced West Virginia in week 1 last year. Pitt takes care of business, wins that game. But then even the next week, we saw our defense, play much better the entire game. For instance, when we faced Tennessee at Acrisure Stadium, which Tennessee is a great football team, a top 30 rushing team
Great
last
game.
year. Oh, brother, we held them to under 80 yards rushing. They had 225 yards passing. We went to overtime at 27-27 in regulation. And obviously, Hendon Hooker made a hell of a throw to win that game against Nick Patty, who, again, I love Nick Patty, our backup quarterback. Keaton Slovis got hurt in that game. But overall, just a great football game. But you see Pitt continually make the adjustment because of the football staff that we have. And I always tell people, the greatest staffs are not built by are not just the head coach. Everyone looks at the head coach. It's the assistants around him. Are you able to get guys that really funnel and really work on what the head coach lacks? That's what you really want in a football staff. And I think Pitt has that. I really expect them to do their job this week and go down to Morgantown. It's going to be a physical football game. I've been watching this game since I was a young kid. I remember going down there as a young kid and watching those fans. They all yell, "Eat shit, Pitt." They all yell it in unison. Whether it's throwing batteries or throwing full cans of beer, it's one for the ages. And I think in this term, for week 3, there's some good football games. I want to tell people that there are some good football games out there in week 3. But when you have the backyard brawl, it's going to be the game light at 7:30. It's going to be a fun one for sure.
The comments are not holding any punches on you, JJ. I don't know why the hate for Pitt is coming out like this. I didn't realize that. I've got nothing but respect for those guys out there in Pittsburgh, but there is no love for you right now. And then your Pittsburgh team, my man.
But hey, Gator gang. I didn't even know there were a lot of Gator fans out there, especially because they're running from getting just absolutely just ripped.
There it is. There it is. I love it. Look, man, I'm hoping Pitt can really find a way to bounce back. So you're picking them this week. Right now, they're -1 favorites to win the football game. I picked them and I picked them earlier this week. I feel confident about them getting it done. I felt like the spread's a little close, but again, they haven't really given too much promise to show that. But UNC is going to be a real test. UNC seems like it's UNC and the FSU show for the ACC. Do you think Pitt gives UNC a fight here, or is Pitt in a little bit of a step back here in regards to the rest of and to those top tier ACC teams right now?
So I think it's going to be a good game. Obviously, Drake May is going to be in the Heisman watch for the entire season. I think he's that good. I think he's going to be, if not the first quarterback taken, the second quarterback taken. We'll see between him and Caleb Williams what they're able to do. But I think it's going to be a great game. I think it really helps that it's at Acrisure Stadium. That's going to help them out, especially being at home. Me personally, I'm going to love the matchup. I think, right now, I think just from what I watched in week 2, potentially a step back. I think more will tell us what this team's going to look like this year. Today against West Virginia, we'll see what that looks like. If the offense struggles again, I'd say we're going to take a step back this year. But when I look at the roster overall, a lot of guys returning in terms of who played last year on the defensive side of the ball. Again, I think they're not going to take that big of a step back. I had this as a 9-win football team, 9-3. With actually, I had losses to teams like North Carolina, Notre Dame, and Florida State were really my 3 losses. Okay. We'll see how they bounce back. They'll have to grab a game from one of those teams. UNC is going to be tight. I'm interested to see how their defense continues to develop. Their offense is good, but even as last year, Pitt had a lead going into the fourth quarter. We'll see what they do, but I'm going to see more from Pitt this week, and it'll tell me more what happens going forward.
Love it, man. Well, JJ, give me your closing thoughts, and then we're going to head to Around the Table Talk, which I think is going to be an absolute doozy this week. We've got some dogs in there today, so I'm excited about it. Wrap it up, man.
I'll tell you what, man. I'm excited for this game. I have Pitt winning in a close one, 27-24. I think they take care of business down in Morgantown. Pat Narduzzi has been one of those guys that comes back after a loss. After a loss, he comes back the next week and really proves who he is. That's why he has the great record he does at Pitt. He's got the second most ACC wins of any coach in the ACC besides Dabo Swinney, the only coach to beat Dabo Swinney twice. Right now, 2-2 against Dabo Swinney and Clemson. Obviously beating Mike Norvell down at Florida State in 2020. So we'll see what it continues to look like. I just want to make sure that the biggest thing is with Pitt, that this game will really tell us a lot from a physicality standpoint, what the offense will look like, but more importantly, how the defense will be. And does the defense come out and really show what it does? But really, my biggest thing, my 3 keys to victory today for really Pat Narduzzi and Pitt is one, establish the run. I can't talk about that enough in terms of being able to run the football really controls the football game and really controls the front and the front lines of everything. Number two, do the routine things routinely. And what I mean by that is the routine plays, okay? Easy blocking schemes, tackling, no penalties, things of that nature. The routine things, catching the football. Do those routinely, it'll lead you to victory. And more importantly, the most of all, be disciplined and be physical. Being disciplined means, one, no dumb, flagrant fouls, no penalties, no offsides, no plays that could really hold you back within terms of winning the football game. I think Pitt would have a good chance to do that today, and I expect that today from the Pitt Panthers.
Well, I hope they get it done as well to keep my pick'ems alive. I struggled last week. Too many emotional picks, so hopefully they get it done this week. We'll rock over to your takeaways. JJ, thank you again, man, for being on here. I appreciate you. We'll be back.
No problem, man. Hail to Pitt.
Well, that was JJ Kitchen with the Pittsburgh Panthers there all the way up in the ACC conference. Again, a big game, the Backyard Brawl. It's an exciting game. It's a fun game. It kicked off the season last year, so excited to see how that plays out this year. And as Jake was mentioning, again, everyone's kind of pouting about these schedules this week. There's some exciting stuff there. There's a lot of history with the games that are being played and a lot to be shown, and we're going to see what we're going to get out of a couple of teams that are playing this week. But what we're going to do now is have probably one of my favorite segments. We had a blast doing it last week. Is Hightop Table Talk. A little competition involved. Ty Hayes is our defending champion. We're going to go over to those guys right now. Gentlemen, welcome back. He's got the crowd. He's ready to rock and roll. Good to have all of you here. I'll go over the rules really quick. Ty was here last week. JJ and Jake, this is your first time here. It's pretty simple. It's around the horn. We've all watched it. We've all seen it. We've got 3 questions lined up. Ty will go first. He'll get a minute. When you hear this sound right here, this means your time is up. And then exactly. And then we'll move on. I'm the scorekeeper, so however I feel is what we're holding. I won't hold the team you cheer for against you. So
pander to him is essentially what he's saying.
So that means he definitely is going to hold the team you cheer for.
I'm just saying. If somehow JJ pulls it out, it was a nail biter. It was a close one. All right, first order of business, Ty. We're going to rock with you. Once I finish the question, you can start, and that will start your timer, boss.
Let's do it.
My clock up here. All right, first question. So Coach Prime has responded to Coach Norvell with buying his entire team sunglasses. The entire ESPN staff had sunglasses on today. What was your thoughts on him responding to it? Do you love it? Do you love him going back at it? Or are you tired of hearing about it? Let's just play some football.
Gotcha. Hold on. Before I can answer this, allow me... Since we're in the presence of adults and we have to remove our hats, that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Gentlemen, we're talking about a violent game. This fighting, we're all men here. You're coming into a game to do battle, and you're worried about what the coach across from you is wearing. I love that Coach Prime responded. If you're going to open your mouth about some silly shit like hats and sunglasses, yeah, get prepared to get punched in the mouth. You made it personal. You could have gone about your business. You're not even a coach who wins stuff. And by the way, how many interviews have you done with that silly visor on your head? And now all of a sudden it's problematic. You want to know why it's problematic? Because they're talking about something in this game besides how terrible Colorado State is. They're talking about Coach Prime because he's giving people a reason to tune in. It was ridiculous what Jay Norvell said. If you're going to throw stones, don't be in a glass house. I have so many pictures of him in interviews with hats. It was ridiculous. It's
beautiful. Well said.
I need to go get the hat. Hold on.
I know. I love the reference back to the throwing stones and a callback to Jake's comments earlier. All right, JJ, what are your thoughts, man? Love it, hate it, tired of hearing about it? Rock and roll.
Yeah, so for one, I'm really just sick and tired of hearing about it. I mean, for instance, I don't know why he thought it was a good idea, Norvell, to talk about Prime in terms of wearing a hat, wearing sunglasses. That's who Deion Sanders is. He's Coach Prime. There's a reason why he's the best of the best. There's a reason why everyone's talking about Colorado. It used to be a 1-11 team. Everybody doubted him in the beginning. Nobody wanted him to win in the beginning. Everyone said he was going to fail. Here he is 2-0 after he just completely slapped the hell out of both of his opponents that he faced in week 1 and week 2. He's a guy that does it his way. Doesn't matter if it was in the National Football League. Doesn't matter if it was in Major League Baseball. The guy finds a way to win. And as he always says, he is him, okay? And that's a fact. This guy truly does it his way. So he's not going to follow what other college football coaches do. He's not going to follow what everybody else does, because the old way of doing things takes 5 to 6 years to get done or gets you fired. So one or the other. He's a guy that's going to continue to get after it. He's going to recruit the players that he looks forward to. He's always he's always recruiting. He's always recruiting to other people in the country. So even when they bring a negative point, they'll bring a negative point to Deion Sanders. This is the same guy that says, you know what, I'll bring that negative over here real quick. Let me turn it to a positive, and I'll take, heck, who knows, maybe in the portal next year, I'll be taking some of your players. We'll see how that looks.
Little acapella, little Eminem after the tone there. I love it. All right, Jake, over to you, man. You close it down strong here, boss.
Yeah, look, the whole point of coaching is to try and put yourself and put your team in the best position to win. And when you do things like, the only advantage Colorado State had, and they were going to lose the game anyway, but the only advantage they had was the advantage of surprise, because everybody on game day is going to be talking today about Colorado versus USC, Colorado versus Oregon. Guess who they're not going to be talking about? Colorado versus Colorado State. But now you've given Prime and his coaching staff the ability to narrow the players' focus on Colorado State. All week, I guarantee you, Prime and them are like, we have to worry about Colorado State. Worry about Colorado State. We'll play Oregon when we play Oregon. But Jay Norvell saying this, I don't understand it. How did this make your team better? How did this give you a better chance to win? Not only that, you took a shot at the leader of 18 to 22-year-old men. Nothing gets you more fired up as an 18 to 22-year-old man when somebody takes a shot at your leader. Why do you think America's won back-to-back world wars? That's because all they did was talk trash about our leaders. And at the end of the day, when you're trying to narrow, bulletin board doesn't help during the game. It doesn't. Once the ball snapped. Where bulletin board material does help is in preparation. It narrows focus. You play like you prepare. Colorado, he just reserved 2 tickets to Ass Whoopin' Island.
What? You pull out the back-to-back championships, you're going to fire me up any day of the week. Ty, you're in for a run today, boy.
Yeah, I got nothing to say to that.
Oh, my goodness. I love that. And I think you made a good point, too, of CSU, their advantage was staying under the radar, right? Their advantage was the surprise attack, in the sense that Colorado could be overlooking them, and now you just put them right on the map for no apparent reason. Hell of a point. Ty, your championship's in threat here. I love it. All right, JJ, we're going to go with you first on this next question. Good points there, guys. I love that. Now, I know you're SEC, but you can still have a thought on this. As of today, who is the favorite in the SEC West to take it home after what we've seen over the first 2 weeks?
Oh, the SEC West. I'll tell you what, man. It's going to be up for battles, man. I mean, because at the end of the day, when you look at these teams, man, that's tough, man. Because even after Texas A&M just lost too, the way I look at it is I still want to see what Alabama does in terms of what they're able to do. I think it's one football game. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I understand they're starting a new quarterback today in terms of one, they weren't happy with what it looked like last week. But again, they were facing Texas. I think Texas is for real this week. I'm still interested to see what they do. Nick Saban is still that guy. Nick Saban is still the best coach in college football besides Kirby Smart. Again, I'm still willing to see what it's up there right now. But I'd say right now, TBD at this point.
All right. Good stuff. Jake, take it home, man. How we feeling?
Yeah, I mean, look, the schedule dictates everything, right? It's as wide open as I've seen it in a while, but you get LSU at home. You get Tennessee at home if you're talking about Alabama right now. You do go on the road and play A&M. It's hard not to lean toward Alabama with that LSU game. LSU having to go down to Tuscaloosa. But give me LSU. I think LSU's embarrassed after week 1. They got punked halfway through the game. Everybody was there except Ashton Kutcher and the cameras. Physically, Florida State made the decision that we're just going to line up and kick your ass a little bit. I was shocked at the game plan after last year when their season changed halfway through, when Jane Daniels started throwing the ball to the deep third of the field. Yet you go into the first game against Florida State and you only have 4 passes over 15 yards. I don't understand that game plan. I don't understand how you adjust there. Also don't understand how when you realize that Jordan Travis was scrambling to throw, you didn't take Harold Perkins out of being a spy, because you can't play umbrella coverage and have a spy taken away from intermediate coverage. That's why Johnny Wilson was running right open like that chick on the top of a mountain on The Sound of Music. So give me LSU. I think they're embarrassed. I think they got physically beat down. LSU is not a finesse team. They're a team that should strike the fear of God in you when you get off the bus. They won't be afraid of Alabama. They beat them last year. Give me LSU to find a way.
What a close. Ty?
Yeah, so let me start off with this. I'm going to go with Alabama. And Jake, I hear you, but if we're talking about LSU not being a finesse team, they're a power team. They just got their shit kicked in by Florida State. This is a power team that can't run the football. They weren't able to run the football last year. Their leading rusher last year was Jaden Daniels. They have no semblance of a rushing attack this year. And guess what? The DBU moniker, that's long gone. They rebuilt this defensive backfield in the transfer portal. And guess what? They don't look to be very good. Denver Harris is still doing donuts in a parking lot somewhere, and they need him in this defensive backfield. Brian Kelly, you make a great point. There are certain times in the year where Brian Kelly does things that leaves us scratching our head. We've already seen the first one. I'm inclined to think we see more because historically, that's what Brian Kelly does. Is he a great coach? Sure. But how many times over the course of his career can I point to instances and we're sitting there just going, what in the world is going on? It's a far too frequent occurrence. If I look at Alabama, yes, there are questions, but look at Ole Miss. 3rd and Golding is there. Don't know about their defense. Right now, Arkansas, they had a terrible pass defense last year. Rocket Sanders hurt, and they have to replace some wide receivers. Question marks all over the SEC, especially the SEC West, but give me Alabama because even though they have questions, I feel like they have less questions than other teams.
Whew, spicy. There we go. I love it. Look, I think the biggest thing you mentioned, you hit on the head, was the LSU is the playmakers, especially from DBU. There's watching the LSU game, there's always been a guy they could resort to, whether it was Tyree Matthew, whether it was Leonard Fournette, whether it was JJ, whether it was right. For the last few years, there's always been a guy that you could look to carry the load. Jaden Daniels, in my opinion, isn't the guy to carry that load for them, but I still think they're a great football team. I like Jake's thought that they can win the West. We're kind of sleeping on them because they did lose to a really good FSU football team. Outside of that, and again, Bama did lose to a great Texas team as well, too. So maybe we're overreacting a little bit, but it does feel open. Go ahead.
Won the West last year after losing to FSU and that same team that couldn't run the ball. So, I mean, again, I know that the Bama game's on the road, but look, I'm just glad it's wide open. I'm glad there's just not 2 teams that we know are going to play in the SEC championship, and now it's all just a formality at this point.
No,
before we go to the next, go ahead.
I don't disagree with that point. That's a fair point, but I also think this is a Bama team. As bad as that offense was, gentlemen, they had almost as much offense. They had more offense with Jalen Milroe and a discombobulated offense than they had with Bryce Young. That's something to keep in mind.
Quinn Ewers
and against a better Texas defense.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers walked out of Bryant Denny as clean as a jersey as he
no
had.
Doubt, no doubt.
That's Bama's biggest problem is they don't have a monopoly up front anymore. That's why they can't get back.
One of the big ways they nullified that was the East and West passing game. I'm not worried about Brian Kelly calling a game Steve Sarkisian.
They ran it pretty good too, though. I thought
they averaged less than 3 yards per carry.
Well, they ran it enough to be able to open up what Sark wanted to do. I mean,
they had to use the quick passing game as an extension of the running game because the running game wasn't popping. Now, to your point, at the 7th minute mark, they were absolutely able to take it. Fair point. But once again, we're looking at a team that I don't know that they have the offensive creativity in that offense, or at least we haven't seen it yet, that Steve Sarkisian does. Now, I'm not saying that I think LSU's right there. It's going to be a great game, but I do think there are questions offensively for them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
JJ, any thoughts?
Yeah.
All right, right in the middle there. He's watch yourself. I love it.
Sometimes you just let it go.
I love it. Good stuff there. Real quick though, before we go into our next topic, this is kind of a question for everybody, and I think it'd be good to get your thought too, JJ, being on the outside looking in. The panic last week was the ACC is done. There's no points for this. The SEC. The SEC is in shambles. It's done. SEC has been the powerhouse. Are fans overreacting, or has the SEC come down to reality a little bit? And again, things are starting to spread out. Ty, you go first, and Jake can go.
Oh, I go first?
Yeah, there's no points. It's more I just want to kind of get a thought because I've been hearing it. And I think it'll be good to get multiple perspectives of it.
Yeah, look, let's start it off. The SEC has been disappointing thus far. Now, look, Florida State played. They're a great team. Texas, I think, is a very good team. But I think right now the SEC is a little bit lackluster. Now, that being said, I think if you're asking me to pick a national champion, it's still very early. Georgia is Georgia. I want to see them continue on, but they have an easy path to the college football playoffs. But I don't think that there's any doubt that the SEC is a little bit down this year. Now, whether the question extends to, does that mean other conferences are up? I look at the Pac-12. There's phenomenal quarterback play over there right now. They're a lot of fun to watch. The Big Ten has some teams in it. I mean, we look at Penn State, your normal teams, right? But the SEC, I think this year is a year where there are more question marks than normal. And I think a big reason for that is you don't have the consistent quarterback play that you've had in prior years. at least in recent history that we can point to. So I think the SEC is a little bit down, but I also think that there's an overreaction because I think that people from the outside look at the SEC and want them to be down. So any semblance of an argument they can make to say, oh, the SEC is down, the SEC is bad, that's a position they'll take.
Jake?
Yeah, look, I agree a lot with what Ty said. I mean, football's cyclical, right? It's cyclical. It's been so crazy that the SEC has been so dominant. I mean, you look at all-encompassing, the NFL draft, championships, non-conference. That's why, 30 years from now, everybody's going to be running the triple option and thinking it's the coolest thing ever. Football just goes in cycles. This year is an anomaly because you look at the change, right? You look at the continuity change. The SEC had to replace basically every quarterback at the top, at least what have been the top teams outside of LSU and a couple others. A lot of offensive line movement too. And a point I think that I want to make about the transfer portal is we knew the rich were going to get richer, right? Alabama will always be fine. Georgia will always be fine. Michigan, Ohio State, all these teams that take transfers, the rich will get richer. But I think a rising tide lifts all ships. I think you've seen a lot of middle-level Power 5 teams be able to bring in proven commodities because experience is the unteachable intangible. That's why I'd much rather pick up a free agent in the NFL than have to project a draft pick because I know what I'm getting at that level. So I think you've seen a lot of teams, especially up front, be able to start to compete because they have experience. They're not having to rely on freshmen that may be undeveloped once that starting left tackle goes down, because a lot of the drop-off between the top teams, mid-tier teams, and the lower teams are when you get somebody hurt up front on either side. I think that's been a big part of it. There's typically a bunch of skill players that can come up from FCS and ball in high-level Division I, but it's those guards, those centers, those three techs, those noses, those jacks, those rush-ins, those type players that I think have helped other teams be able to really upgrade themselves. So I think the transfer portal has helped everybody. And look at the NFL draft. SEC will have the most players taken still. But, yeah, the SEC is not as dominant this year, especially at the top, as it has been in the past, which is part of it.
Absolutely. JJ, what are your thoughts, man, on the outside looking in? You've got to love it a little bit.
Obviously it was good to see, obviously, Florida State. I mean, it was a beatdown against LSU. It wasn't close. I mean, especially coming into the second half. Obviously, North Carolina took care of South Carolina. But at the end of the day, the SEC is still the best conference, okay? I love Georgia still. Georgia's Georgia. You're not going to confuse Kirby Smart.
I'm giving JJ
he knows the physicality of the game. I mean, it's a fact, okay? I really like what they're still doing. Again, I still have faith in Nick Saban. Look, it's a loss against Texas, who's actually for real for once in the last 10, 15 years. It's about time they actually did something. I mean, it's usually they're mediocre in and out. They have high expectations, but they're mediocre. Nick Saban's still Nick Saban. Okay, I think fans need to understand that and see where that is. But more importantly, though, I think just when you look at those two teams, I think LSU, again, they had that loss early on last year. They still bounced back and won. They're still right there. And I still want to see what Tennessee does. I mean, you still look at those four teams. It's really what I like to see in those four teams, what they're able to do. But overall, I would agree with everybody who's here. The quarterback play in the SEC has not been good. I think that's been very effective in terms of what the losses have been. It's really attributed to it. But also, too, the transfer portal's really distributed all of that talent. I think really in recruiting, but the transfer portal, people being able to leave, being able to come over. I just think right now the SEC is still the top conference. I'm not debating that. But I still think it's more equal this year. I think it's really been competitive. The SEC being wide open in terms of really who will come, who's going to face Georgia in the championship game. But more importantly, though, I think it's just been all around a good season in terms of being competitive with all these conferences.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think people are taking jabs at it, but I'm enjoying seeing teams that we typically wouldn't see lose. I mean, I don't like to see the SEC lose, but I also don't mind seeing Spencer Rattler get clapped by UNC, right? I didn't want LSU to lose to FSU. I haven't stopped hearing about that, but watching that was a fun battle.
Yeah, if every college season was like a director of a movie, this would be the M. Night Shyamalan one, right? This would be the one that just looks different. Like Jason Bay's just running stuff, or Michael Bay, whoever it is, just running stuff into each other. We know what we get with Tarantino. People are just getting blown. This is the M. Night Shyamalan. Oh my God, it was the dad the whole time. He's really an alien or a werewolf or something. That's what this year is to me.
Exactly. So true.
It's good. It's you need that every now and then, right? You're kind of watching like what's going on.
For sure. Hey, I want to watch Signs. I want to watch Joaquin Phoenix and Mel Gibson freak out with glasses of water hanging around the living room.
Signs, such a good movie.
I don't want it to be all Fast and the Furious. Will somebody arrest these people? Like at some point, will somebody arrest these people? Jesus.
Oh my goodness, such a good one. I mean, even
It's been too fast and too furious, huh?
It has, man. It's like Liam Neeson in Taken. Like, at what point are you just a bad father? Like,
At what point do you need to realize, get away from this individual? Nothing good happens.
Dude. God, how many times? Get some locks. Do something. Move.
oh, that's
so good.
cold. I love it. I mean, that's fair. That's kind of been the college football over the last few years, right? It's been Taken. It's just the same story, but a different scene,
Yeah.
right?
Dang.
A different
Romanians
town.
again. Dang.
Yep. same characters though. All right, guys. Last question here. Jake, you're gonna go first on this one. Take it easy though. This one hits personal at home, so just keep that in mind when you're rating and raving. All right. Will Billy Napier be on the hot seat if he loses, if the Tennessee game doesn't go as planned?
Yeah, well, look, I think Billy Napier is always on the hot seat. You know, when you're the head coach at Florida and you're not winning while Georgia's doing what they're doing and Tennessee looks like they're having a resurgence, then yeah. And is that fair to Billy? No, but life's not fair. Florida's not some poor little school that needs somebody to hold their hand. It's tough right now. And Dan Mullen coming out and saying what he said the other day was absolutely dumbfounding to me, because Dan Mullen, Florida recruits itself, but he didn't have it recruiting at maximum efficiency. And the culture there, which is the hardest thing to rebuild, is what he left Billy Napier, who's trying to build it from the ground up. There's 3 pillars of winning: recruiting, development, and culture. Culture takes the longest to develop. It takes cycles of leaders teaching young guys how to lead. And with that schedule mixed with the growing pains, yes, Billy Napier is going to be on the hot seat, because right now Florida fans feel like they got the rawhide wallet while everybody else got Hulk hands. That's what it feels like right now. And in the arms race of college football, at the end of the day, it's what have you done for me? Not lately. It's what have you done for me literally right now, a second ago when I walked in here. So yes, but I'll say this real quickly. The standard should never dip at Florida. He should be on the hot seat because the standard should never lower. If the standard lowers, you've already lost. I say this about Auburn all the time. They 8-4 is not acceptable. 7-5 is not acceptable. You can be realistic with not accepting 7-5. So yes, he will, because fans are fanatical and Florida wants to win.
Beautiful. That was good. I appreciate that. I mean, that was spot on there. I think fans are going to enjoy hearing that. Ty?
Yeah, look, I'm just going to pick up right where he left off. All of those points hit the nail on the head. But I think we can keep taking this a step further, and I think that's what makes this even worse for Billy Napier. Jake, I completely agree. If we're thinking of what should happen, no, he shouldn't be on the hot seat, because he has a lot of work out in front of him. He inherited a Ferrari, but when you walked up to the Ferrari, it was sitting on cinder blocks, and it had a damn Toyota Prius engine in the back. This was not a regular Ferrari. But to add on to your point, Jake, because you took it home. There are 2 other schools in the state of Florida. If we talk about UCF, 3 other schools in the state of Florida that are all big name schools that they're moving in a positive direction. I mean, you look at Florida State, what they did. Hype is on about them. You said it earlier, Jake, when you were talking about Miami, how they looked, how they were flying around to the football. That looked like for every Florida team that gets better, it makes Billy Napier's job more and more difficult. And inevitably, that's a program that has a lot of pride. Whether he should be on the hot seat or not, it matters little. He will be.
Agreed.
Good stuff, Ty. JJ, you got to make a hell of a swing here, big guy.
Lift your shirt up, JJ. Show it all. Show it all.
Yeah, you get 2 powerhouses. I don't know what to tell you, man. We had Jason put on the whiteboard last week. Figure it out.
I'll tell you what, man. In terms of what this really should be, Billy Napier should not be on the hot seat, and here's why. Again, I understand. Beforehand, Dan Mullen. I saw the comments that he made on ESPN. One, I think it's better that he just stops talking, especially because why he got fired. He did a horrible job down in Florida from the get-go. This wasn't Florida from when Tim Tebow was there. He's no Urban Meyer. I can promise you that. He was never able to recruit that way. But in reality, though, these are the same fans. Florida fans are the same ones that had Billy Napier on the hot seat before he even coached the game. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, in terms of a fan base, I mean, like, what the hell? I mean, let the guy coach. But also, too, I like to comment, culture isn't built in a year, and especially when you're bringing so many transfers in and you're bringing your own recruits. Allow this guy time to actually go out there and win football games. Allow this guy to actually go out there and coach his players. He's got to decipher which players are actually on board or overboard. One of the things Nick Saban always says, the springtime is when you find out who's on board and then who's overboard. So allow Billy Napier to actually build his culture, find out which guys, let him find out who he wants to build.
Love it. Great takeaways there from all of you. I mean, I respect all those opinions. I appreciate that. I think you guys all nailed it on the head. And again, it's just the world that we live in. The expectations from Florida fans is through the roof. But look, patience is a big key. And we kind of we're referencing the FSU. They're on up and coming. Miami's on a hot. We can't really say they're up and coming just yet. They had a great game against Texas A&M, but who knows Texas A&M is. But Norvell's been there for quite some time. He's had a chance to build. And unfortunately, while Florida's been floundering around, while Dan Mullen came in and kind of carried his, what he was doing, everybody else was figuring things out and going in the right direction, while Florida was, I want to say, floating along, but in a way going downhill. But, well, hell of a battle. Jake and Ty were throwing down there toe-to-toe at the end. Jake was able to close it down with the last closing thoughts. He stayed on the right side of the Billy Napier talk, which I appreciated. Dropped the hammer a little bit, but go ahead.
Pass the gauntlet.
Yeah, first off, great meeting you guys. This was fantastic. I think the real winners in this was everybody that got to listen. I think this was, great production. My time coming on here. I do want to say this, in a time where college football is changing more than we've ever seen with the transfer portal, conference realignment, and all this, the on-the-field product is better than it's ever been. If you turn on the TV from a coaching standpoint, from an athlete standpoint, we got to make sure that we don't lose sight of how important that is and what college football means to all of us. I know regionality and amateurism and all that stuff is what has kind of separated college football from the other sports, but it is amazing at the end of the day how much better the product is all around the country. And what a crazy coincidence that as we head into an expanded playoff, I think it should be 8, it's going to be 12, that we have more parity this year than we've seen in a long time in college football. So while you can get upset about the changes, I get it. Some people don't like change. The on-the-field product is absolutely amazing. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a big point to make is where it's headed, and especially with the college football playoff. The fact that we're so close and in 1 through 25, it's anybody's ball game is exciting. This is what we've constantly complained about, and now we finally have it. Let's just appreciate it for what it is. And
so
again, I know
the NCAA tournament so great, right? March Madness, right?
Yeah,
same thing.
Absolutely. It's you never know who's going to win it, and sometimes it's frustrating and it can be annoying because your bracket gets busted. But you got to be honest, when it's not your team winning, you like to see the big guy goes down. Mm-hmm. And I've been enjoying to watch this entire this year so far. So look, guys, I really appreciate it. Let me go around the horn really quick one last time. Ty, to kind of tell who you are, where they can find you, and thank you again, man, for coming on here.
Absolutely, man. This was a blast. Jake, JJ, thank y'all for coming on here. It was awesome getting to talk to y'all. Jake, I know I messaged you the other day. Guys in chat, Jake does both Shelton, Hightop, JJ, they both do great stuff, but Jake does fantastic stuff. And this is a guy that, as good of a content creator as he is, genuinely, he is a solid dude.
Appreciate that.
Shelton, something that you don't know, this was one of the first people to ever give me any sort of attention, any sort of, hey, you're doing a good job. Like, he was one of the very first people to do that. And that meant a lot to me. He's awesome. A great guy. But for me personally, you can find me at Around the Table Sports on YouTube. Also, new little gig going on. They have me on Bleacher Report every Friday. We do our college football pick'em show on Bleacher Report.
Get him, dog. Get him.
And then I'm also doing Alabama streams for Bleacher Report. So after the game today, you can catch me on Bleacher Report talking about Bama.
Love it. And yes, Jake, I mean, again, shout out to all of you guys for coming on here, but Jake has been incredible this entire time, especially since our relationship started off with me being rowdy about his list, which, look, I think any good relationship should start that way.
Yeah, most of my friends, we got in fights and then became friends. That's
how healthy relationships are. But Jay, go ahead and tell me where they can find you, man. Again, I appreciate you coming on here, even though we had our time slots.
Look, I'm all for dissent, man. Absolutely all for dissent. I love it. No, it's great meeting you guys. Ty, obviously, dude, super proud of you, bro. To watch you. You're a guy that got it out of the mud. All you guys are, and I'm gonna continue to watch you grow. You're not done yet, man. And anything I can do, just let me know. This has been great. I've had a lot of fun. I mean, hell. Hopped in here and had a little trouble getting in, had a little swordfish Hugh Jackman issue, but then I figured it out and glad I did. But no, look, easy to find. It's YouTube, Crain & Company, CRAIN and Company on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go hit that subscribe button. We just hit 100K, so we're really excited about that. Live each weekday morning, 6:30 to 8 a.m. Central. But it stays on there all the time. We have live call-ins, a live chat. So if you like great content like this, I'm sure you'll like us. And then on Twitter, X, or, Hippopotamus, whatever it's called this week, just you can find me at Jake Crain _.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a hell of a show. I called in the other day. I don't know if you knew it was me, but I called in during.
Did you?
Yeah, during the Florida Tennessee talk, my kid yelled.
I got emotional.
My kid yelled during it.
That was that. Oh my God. Okay. I thought I recognized your voice. That's wild, bro.
Yeah, that was me. That was me.
Next time, next time, just tell him you're from Hightop, and I'll have them send you the front of the line.
No, you're good, man. I didn't mind. Wait, I was kind of glad. I was trying to like play around with him and talk him, but
Dude,
you guys are great.
That was a really good call. Sometimes we're like, man, that was a good call, because sometimes we're like, that wasn't a good call.
I was hoping I didn't look like an idiot, man, but I appreciate it.
No, you didn't, man. You look good.
JJ, talk to me, big guy.
No, brother, thank you for having me on here. It's always good to get on here. I've been watching your show for a while, so it's always great. Ty, I've seen you before. We've been on plenty of shows. Jake, was great to meet you as well. Guys, especially the fans too. College football has been at its best. This is the best product that we've had out there. There's been a lot of disagreements in terms of, especially too, when you look at conference realignment, stuff like that. Enjoy the game. Really enjoy the rivalries that are out there. The year has been great so far. The parity that's been out there. Just truly enjoy it. And honestly, the show's been great just because of the fans, the people that are watching. So again, you guys can follow me on Twitter at JJ_Kitchen40, or you can follow me on YouTube at Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen.
Love it. And let's give a quick shout out to the professor, the producer behind the scenes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you,
Go
Cody,
get Magneto. Go get him.
Hey, take a shot of your Red Bull Force, please.
It's empty.
Look at the size of that thing, dude.
Dear
Unreal.
God.
Rocking off 4 hours of sleep.
Hey, you want to know what's going to be funny? JJ's going to like look me up and then see my Pitt prediction and instantly hate me the next time I come on here. I caught more hell, JJ, from Pitt fans with my prediction for Pitt this year. I didn't talk about coming out of the woodwork, man.
Oh my God. I didn't see it yet, but I'll have to go look.
You may not want, you get to look at it like this. So
hey, people have been doubting Pitt for a while now, and they continue to upset. We win an ACC championship. It's all right. We're used to it at this point.
Y'all like the girl in high school that's overweight until like you see her junior year and she's just like a knockout. Like that's what Pitt is to me.
Hey man, as long as we keep winning games, that's all I care about.
For sure.
He said, as long as we end up a knockout, that's all I care.
That's exactly right.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Cody. And gentlemen, thank you as well. I'm going to close it down here, but appreciate all those men for hopping on the show. Again, go follow those guys. They put out fantastic content. Absolute blast. I hope you guys are enjoying this rendition of our college game day. I have a blast doing it. It seems that you guys are having a blast watching it, having the around the horn, getting just different takes from around the league. College football, again, like they said, is at its peak. It feels like it's very exciting to watch. I appreciate you guys. Somebody asked if I could hit the button here.
How about them Gators?
We didn't talk about them much today, but go Gators. I'm headed to Gainesville right now. As soon as we shut this bad boy down, we'll be at the Harmonic Woods tailgate for our tailgate live show from the back of our tailgate. So if you're down there, come see us, come say hey, come hang out. Let's get a photo. Dave's already down there, 4 bottles deep. So make sure you go show him some love. I appreciate you guys, as always, for coming on. Drop a like, subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next one. Go Gators, boys.